So, 2 days ago, the official end to My Little Pony Generation 5 occurred. And it ended basically with the 23rd episode, even though it was supposed to be like 2 or 3 more. And one of them, if not two of them, was supposed to be 22 minutes long. But it was just a normal 5-minute episode. And that was it. Now they're going to continue to rerun, the episodes 22, minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, for as long as they can. Now, there's a good chance that those that, are obviously upset about this, are going to go back and watch them, and they're going to tell other people about it. And there's been a history of when that happens, a show that you think is going to be gone ends up returning. So I wouldn't shut the door completely on G5 just yet. I mean, they're still selling merchandise and everything, toys and all that, as we speak. Mostly you got to go online, like the places like Amazon and everything, but they are there. But the question is, what happened? Why did it fail? Well, I've mentioned this before. I think it's mainly because of the fact that it tried too hard to rely on the lore and the continuity, the world building that G4 did. And the unfortunate part is that even though that was a good, I guess you could say, starting point, a good idea to go with, the unfortunate part was most of that world building is owned technically by somebody else, and that's Discovery, or Warner Brothers Discovery. How long it's owned for, we don't know. But yeah, that was the one thing that held them back from fully, just being able to allow this show to go and, be a true continuation in the future of Generation 4, and even implement the G4 characters, if you will. I mean, there were a few they implemented. Twilight to an extent, Spike to an extent, but there was nothing else they could do. The only ones that have no, I guess you could say, limitations to what they can bring to the table are the comics. And as far as we know, the comics by IDW is still going to be going on very strongly. There's even, I think, currently a crossover, or going to be a crossover, between both generations real soon. But, yeah, to me, G5 had all the potential to be great, and still does have that potential, because, like I said, people will get told about this, they'll be told to watch it, and once they catch up with it, they'll probably ask themselves, okay, what was the reasoning for taking it off? It didn't make any sense. And that might lead to it being resurrected. We don't know. Some would even say, though, that the structure for the show itself, for the presentation of the generation itself, I should say, is what hurt it. I mean, you did Make Your Mark, which was a continuation of New Generation. I thought that was good. Great direction to go with. But there were some episodes that felt like they just, didn't fit in continuity, and felt a little stagnant when it came to the animation. I could forgive the stagnancy in the animation due to the fact that they were trying to improve. They were basically going with a different studio instead of the one that had done the movie. And by going with a different studio, that studio had to basically take a lot of the files that was being transferred over to it and slowly implement that style with those files given to them into the show to make it close to what we had seen in the movie. And the show, in my opinion, Make Your Mark, I think, had a good conclusion, if you will, the main plot point. Before it went off and did the thing with the Starlight special, which introduces to Allura, and it's like, again, it had the potential that once it went off and did the Starlight thing, after it given us a nice ending, a nice conclusion to, I guess you could say, the first season, its attempt to go off and do its own thing for a potential second season, I thought was all right. You had an interesting villain that obviously was going to get redeemed, no matter how it was done, and I didn't see any real issue whatsoever. I think the problem at the end of the day is, again, I think the problem at the end of the day is a lot of people felt that it was it was trying to be something that it wasn't. It was trying to be a continuation of G4 when it shouldn't have been. And to an extent, I agree with that. I, when I mean to an extent, I mean, if they wanted to just continue doing the continuation of G4 with the movie, New Generation that is, as well as the Make Your Mark series up until the finale, I'd have had no issue with that. Because then you can go off and do your own thing. But there were times, and even in the Starlight Special, I think, that, they were still relying on G4 and its lore to help build the world. Even Tell Your Tale had this as well. And they had a lot of potential right there as well. Tell Your Tale had a lot of potential, even with the 5-minute shorts, if you will, to really, make this their own thing, to go off and do their own stories and create their own lore and everything. But they always just kept, relying on the lore, if you will, on the lore and the world building and, stories and continuity that G4 had created. That even those potentially good 5-minute shorts, sometimes 22-minute ones, would be bogged down because you would still see more references to Generation 4 than being their own thing. And I think that's potentially what's, really hurt it in the end. I think that's what potentially really hurt it in the end and all that. And, going back to the structure, I think the other thing that hurt it was you were telling people that they had to tune in not only to Make Your Mark, but they also had to pay attention to Tell Your Tale, which, when it debuted, was a YouTube exclusive series where Make Your Mark was Netflix, and then, Tell Your Tale did go over to Netflix as well. But you were telling people, watch an episode of Make Your Mark, then watch Tell Your Tale, and, you'll see the connection, to, that, both have with each other. The only problem was, and this was always typical about My Little Pony, even with G4, the problem is that Tell Your Tale sometimes would air episodes to the point, from a weekly standpoint or bi-weekly standpoint, to where it didn't make any sense as to why you were watching them, due to the fact that Netflix was already unloading for each chapter of the initial run of Make Your Mark. They were unloading 6 to 8 episodes, all at once. And, you're watching all of them, if you're binge watching them, and you're seeing what Tell Your Tale's doing, and it's like, okay, yeah, Tell Your Tale fills in the gaps, but what sense does it make? It should do its own thing. It should do its own thing, like Pony Life. Pony Life at G4, which was known as G4.5, should, not should, but it went on to do its own thing. It went on to do its own thing as well. It was just that structure as well as I think, kind of hurt it. But outside of, the structure, it had a lot of potential. I think, again, as I said, if they would have, in my opinion, if they would have just, let the first run of Make Your Mark, be the conclusion for, be the proper conclusion for G4, the lore, the connection, everything that they could bring to the table as possible. If they would have let that be it, if you will, then I don't think there would have been an issue, because then you could do a whole new chapter starting with the Starlight story and start building to your own lore and continuity and world building for G5. And the same goes for Tell Your Tale. After the episodes that helped wrap up everything, when it has, as far as the connections to G4 are concerned, you could have used episodes after that, especially now that you're going and introducing Laura and everything as your villainess or soon to be redeemed villainess. You're, you could have had that opportunity to build your own world, to build your own lore, to build your own continuity. But they never, but they were never able to get out of the starting block, in my opinion, when it came to that, because they just kept always relying on G4, and a lot of people saw that. I mean, yeah, is it a shame they didn't give them a long enough opportunity to, kind of get out of those starting blocks and do their own thing? Yeah, it's a shame. But what's crazy is apparently they're not the only ones. Equestria Girls was the same way. Equestria Girls started off huge. They started off huge with the movie, and then Rainbow Rocks, and then what was it? Legend of Everfree, and so on. They started off huge, and even with the 1 hour specials that they would put on there, like Spring Breakdown and what is it, Forgotten Friendship and all that. Even with even with the anthology Holiday Time special, people still enjoyed them. And guess what? The reason they enjoyed them is they were trying to create their own lore. They were trying to create their own continuity, their own world, if you will, with a connection and crossover here and there with the established Friendship is Magic where it spawned from. But unfortunately, even for them, Hasbro was like, we're not doing this anymore. It's not working. And it was. It was still working. People were enjoying the shorts. I mean, yeah, you had different kinds of ideas here and there, but people were still enjoying them. And there was always that potential to, give it a good finale to where Sunset does go back to Equestria as a pony. Graduation happens. She has the opportunity to go back to, Equestria to, fully redeem herself there now that she's done it in the human world. The opportunity was, the opportunity was there for them to, to run with, but they didn't. Even the opportunity to have Sunset cross paths with the human Sunset, the real Sunset in the human world, was there, but they were never able to pull the trigger on that either. And and what's crazy is there were so many clues. Maybe not so many, but there were hints and clues sprawled all around Equestria Girls that there was another Sunset, and that eventually she would meet up with, the Sunset from Equestria, but it never happened. And the same with her going back to Equestria. The hints and the clues were there, but it never happened. The issue is though, when it comes to Equestria Girls, there was never a reason to end them abruptly like they did. Because they had a decent structure. They had, their own lore. They had their own world building and continuity that they were relying on, with the occasional crossover and everything with Friendship is Magic. G5, it was relying on the continuity and the world building and the lore that G4 had created. But the issue was, it was relying on most of the world building that had been built and a lot of the lore that had been created, post season 4, which was season 5 to 9, and that's currently owned by Discovery. Now you could say, well, there's Cadoodle, it's got season 5 to 9. Yeah, it does, but that's a Canadian streaming service. The U.S. rules there, of licensing don't apply to them. So we're able to watch all 9 seasons there. But here in the U.S., it does apply. And however long that licensing lasts, only then will people be able to get all 9 seasons on Netflix, on Hulu, or anywhere. I mean, yeah, you could buy the seasons digitally, don't get me wrong. But it's just one of those situations to where basically it's just one of those situations to where basically they were trying to rely on the lore mostly established from 5 to 9. And, that being the seasons of Friendship is Magic. And it just wasn't going to work. So again, when they did the finale they did for Make Your Mark, and they started to go off in this new direction with Allura as the new villainess that would be redeemed, and she was going to be the focal point of Tell Your Tale, and Tell Your Tale was going to be the focal point, show-wise, they had the opportunity. The only thing that hurt them was their structure. The structure of not just doing 5-minute shorts on YouTube and Netflix, but mainly the fact that, they didn't have a, it was a structure of you were continuing off a show that should have been its own thing, and Tell Your Tale should have been its own thing. And if you wanted to incorporate Tell Your Tale as the continuation of Make Your Mark, that's fine. But during the initial run of Make Your Mark, let Tell Your Tale be its own thing. I mean, why do you think the IDW comics of MLP, G4, and now G5 have succeeded? Because they're doing their own thing. Yeah, they rely on, some of the references and acknowledgement of things that happen in Make Your Mark and Tell Your Tale, just like Friendship is Magic did. But, they're mostly doing their own thing. I mean, we got a freaking appearance a freaking appearance and encounter by Discord, in the first initial story arc. That tells you that they were able to, go off and do their own thing without an issue. And again, they would reference and acknowledge certain things that happen in Make Your Mark and in the movie and in Tell Your Tale, but they were doing their own thing. And that's, I think, what kind of hurt Tell Your Tale in the end. The fact that it was being relied on too much as a bridge connection between, with Make Your Mark. It's like, here, you watch episode 1 of chapter 2, as they call them on Netflix for Make Your Mark, and after that, you have to watch episode 1, 2, and 3 of Tell Your Tale to connect it. And it's like what's the point? It's like, what's the point if we're gonna pretty much watch all the episodes and binge watch them and everything? What's the point of doing that? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, it does fill in certain gaps, but it's like you can ignore those episodes and nothing would be altered, or nothing would be amiss, if you know what I mean. So I think basically it was more of the structure standpoint, if anything, along with trying to license or trying to obtain an agreement to license out a lot of the world building and such with Friendship is Magic that was mostly established between seasons 5 and 9. So I think honestly at the end of the day, when I look back at G5, I look at a show that had and still has potential to be good, and I truly believe if people rewatch all the episodes of Make Your Mark, they rewatch the movie, and then they watch the episodes of Tell Your Tale, but do it in a way that I guess Hasbro and all of them intended them to do, and they let other people know about it. I have a feeling G5 might have a few more runs left in it. They're gonna have a few more runs left in it because they still owe us a couple of 22-minute Tell Your Tale episodes to wrap things up. And I think eventually we are going to get those. It's just a matter of when and where. And they might just come out of nowhere and surprise us. That with those episodes. I mean, look what Max did with Jellystone season 3, and I think even Tiny Toons season 2. They surprised us like, oh, here you go. Here are the seasons. So that might happen. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what they have in store, but to me, I think there's still a lot of life, left in it, and I would highly encourage anybody that has watched G5 in any form and capacity, let friends know about it, go back and watch it yourself, and hopefully with the more viewership numbers, coming in for it, the more it's going to get the attention of Hasbro, and Hasbro will be like, okay, there's still a market there for it. Let's, continue it. Let's wrap it up properly. Let's put out those last few 22-minute Tell Your Tale episodes and go from there. And you know what's interesting too? G5 was supposed to get their own version of Equestria Girls called Kima Club. Yeah. Remember that name that was being thrown around a couple weeks ago? Cunimar Club? Yeah, that's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the G5 characters, in Equestria Girl form. And the figures looked really good. They look like they fit right into the Equestria Girls world. So yeah, that was supposed to be a thing, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But yeah, to me, I think overall, the structure overall, and getting, people to watch Make Your Mark and then watch certain episodes of Tell Your Tale initially, it really hurt it. I think it really hurt it in the end, and I also think, basically not trying to be its own thing, after everything was said and done, with Make Your Mark, especially with Tell Your Tale, especially with Tell Your Tale during the initial run of Make Your Mark, with it not trying to be its own thing, and then after Make Your Mark was done, take the episodes of Tell Your Tale and make them the continuation you wanted them to be, with Laura and all that. I think overall the structure is what hurt it. And again, the reliance on trying to utilize the world building and the lore and all that from seasons 5 to 9 of Friendship is Magic hurt it as well, because that's owned by Discovery, and Discovery ain't going to give that up without a pretty penny. Let's be honest. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about the show coming to an end the way it did, or the G5 for right now coming to an end as the way it did? It's similar to what Equestria Girls did. And do you think with the potential G6, around the corner, that maybe by that time, because there is rumor that's going to happen, but they're giving themselves time to make it happen, and I think the reason is, is because of what's happened here. They want to make sure they structure things, correctly, and not fall into any situations that might hurt them. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are overall about all of this. Comment below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel. Click on the links in the description to find me elsewhere here on the internet, as well as at divanart.com at BVW1979. And also, check out my Teespring store. Link is also in the description for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. How do you feel about it? How do you feel that it's gone down the same path Equestria Girls did? And do you believe, like I do, that there's still a chance that if more people tune in with the reruns, because, this is something that's happened in the past, with a lot of shows, that it could potentially, get Hasbro to say, okay, let's release the last few episodes of Tell Your Tale and truly wrap this up. What are your thoughts? Comment below, and until then, I am out.